How cool has the Linux gaming experience gotten recently? Did you notice? If not, you should totally hear me out on this one. It is no secret that for the majority of gamers, when it comes to their operating system of choice, the obvious pick is Windows. The reason why this occurs lies in how these games were conceived. Almost all of them are or were developed for Windows only, and they'll probably never see the light on Linux. Sure, there used to be some workarounds for this problem, but they came with a high price. Gamers would have to sacrifice, in the best case, performances or frame rate and their pool of available games only to, just be the ones saying, I still use Arch, by the way. Not a great trade-off, right? However, it's not like that anymore. With time, there have been a ton of improvements that allow a genuine experience with Linux gaming, and amongst others, for this evolution, we have to thank a lot Valve. So where am I going with this? So let's go back to early 2022. A new gaming device was released by Valve, the Steam Deck, a revolutionary portable console meant to play obviously every single game from the Steam marketplace. So let's quickly take a look at the main characteristics. Since the Steam Deck is engineered to be an actual handheld gaming computer, it features a custom AMD CPU based on their Zen 2 and RDNA 2 architectures. You can use it with mouse and keyboard, which by the way I do, because I do have a Steam Deck. It's over there and I just connect it to the monitor and everything works. It is really an actual gaming computer, but cooler. So they, however, had to face a really big problem producing the thing. They had to optimize such a small hardware to be able to play those AAA games without sacrificing on performances nor the portability of the console itself. And how did they do this? Well, of course they have, and we should be really glad of this pick, chosen Linux as its operating system. Steam Deck, in fact, was firstly implemented using Ubuntu, and then they switched to Arch, which is still used today. As for the desktop environment, I'm so proud to tell you that the Steam Deck features KDE Plasma in its desktop mode, on which I'll be returning later. You may think, well, that's great, but is that really important? And yes, it is. You see, they could really feature all of this as it comes out of the box, maybe do some modifications and that's it, but they didn't. Valve didn't really stop there. The open source community acknowledges that the Valve support on free and open source projects has been massive, and they are part of this revolutionary concept behind Linux gaming. In this video, I want to show the most important contributions brought by Valve in this challenge. Keep in mind, all of this work is conceived for the Steam Deck, but is available on almost every Linux environment because it utilizes tools that are no stranger to Linux itself. Steam Deck isn't the only product Valve is maintaining and helping to contribute to the Linux system. There's also another big product, which is Valve Index, the official Steam VR headset supporting OpenXR, which is an open API used also in other free and open source projects such as Blender and Godot. However, I'm not talking today about those projects. I just wanted to show how concerned of a company Valve is towards the open source and Linux community. As we said earlier, the vast majority of games are designed to be played on Windows systems, including games from the Steam library. But the Steam Deck still is a Linux device, so how does that work? The solution to this problem is Proton. I'm gonna go with Proton. It's a tool to use within the Steam client, which allows games that are exclusively developed for Windows to run on the Linux operating system. The most important aspect of it is that it uses Wine to achieve this goal. And I really want to point out that Valve itself worked with Code Weavers, one of the teams behind the Wine project, to include Proton and Wine directly as part of Steam Play. Some of you might be wondering how this magical liar called Wine does the trick. So Wine is not, as you would think, an emulation software. Its name is literally an acronym, a recurring one for Wine is not an emulator. Instead, it's more of an intermediary. It translates Windows API calls into POSIX calls on the fly in order to run code directly on the CPU, as it guarantees significantly better performances, which means that running games on Linux is actually faster than running them on Windows, even though they go through Proton. Although it was designed for the Steam Deck usage, you can use it too on your own Linux device. And if you're still skeptical about the Proton revolution for Linux gaming, you can take a look at Proton's database website, which is probably going to be in the video description. There you can find out how every Steam game performs on Linux with Proton implementation. The results are pretty amazing. Proton features other open source projects such as DXVKE and VKD3D. As you might know, Vulkan is a low overhead API that offers high performances and efficient CPU and GPU usage for 3D graphics and computing. Speaking of which, how did Valve confront the important issue of graphics? So in a lot of ways actually. Valve contributed actively to the development of a Vulkan driver for AMD GPUs, as well as a Vulkan extension for hardware accelerated video compression and decompression. That's hard to pronounce. Vulkan aside, there are a lot of other projects in which Valve is heavily involved that are crucial to improve the Linux gaming experience. Do you know Mesa? Mesa is an open source implementation of OpenGL, Vulkan, and other graphics API specifications, translating them to vendor-specific graphic hardware drivers. Its most important users are two graphic drivers mostly developed and funded by Intel and AMD for their respective hardware. About AMD, Valve itself has been promoting the development of ACO, a Mesa shader compiler for AMD graphics that is designed with the aim of taking gaming experience to the next level. Quoting from the Steam website, its main two goals are best possible code generation for game shaders and fastest possible compilation speeds. AMD hardware is also interested in a specific color API for AMD drivers that allows for HDR displays, high dynamic range, a technology that guarantees a more vivid resolution for colors, light and shadows for monitors that support it. I don't have any. This feature will be available from SteamOS 3.5. At the moment, you can try it out as a preview. Next up, let's talk KDE. Actually, before I do that, this video isn't sponsored, and yet it took some good hours to write it. 3 different people worked on the script, and now I'm recording this, and then all of this will be sent to the editor, and that's gonna be taking hours as well. If all of this only works if I'm able to pay all of these people, and we're most often students without other side jobs to sustain us. So above my head, you should be seeing a progress bar with the money we have received so far this month and how much I actually need. So here you have the team of people that are actually working on the videos. I'm extremely thankful to all of those people who are contributing already. You are the reason any of this is happening at all, and I would be super grateful if you could donate some bucks every month if you haven't already. Goes a long way and gets you some extra content. There's Patreon, Ko-Fi, LibraPay, and PayPal, all in the video description. Let's get back to KDE. So the last thing that Valve had to face was the matter with the whole UI, and they came up with a very interesting solution that makes the Steam Deck a very unique console. In fact, it features 2 different modes. The first and most important mode is gaming mode, which is basically the big picture mode if you ever played directly from the Steam client. This mode uses the Valve's game scope as a compositor, as it supports many gaming-centric features such as spoofing resolutions, upscaling, and limiting frame rates. Most gamers don't feel the need to go outside of this mode, but if you snoop around the power menu, you will find out desktop mode, which is a KDE desktop environment session that enables the user to do practically everything you could do on a normal KDE instance, from web browsing to document viewing to even emulating some retro console or Nintendo Switch. But don't tell Nintendo, because it has already removed emulators from the Steam marketplace. All of this isn't just possible due to Valve's developers on Proton and Vulkan layers, they are also sponsoring external people to work on their products. But what's the coolest part? Valve is also sponsoring KDE developers and other independent freelancers through a third-party company called Blue Systems. But I've talked about this a lot already, and you can also see the beautiful talk that David Edmondson gave at Academy last year. I've done a video about that one as well. In particular, there are specific gaming related to X server projects and KWin improvements for the general desktop usage, and also general improvements to the desktop to make sure that it works well when you actually get to it. And of course, let's not forget about Wayland and the X Wayland layer, which isn't ready for a daily driver yet for me, but for many people it is. But of course, I'm talking about the Steam Deck. The Steam Deck doesn't use Wayland yet, but one day, right? However, for what concerns us today, we can actually see the fruits of the work I was talking about earlier on the latest release of Steam OS, which includes the new KDE Plasma 5.27 desktop, along with its awesome features such as part of HDR support for external displays and variable rate refresh. Of course, KDE developers aren't the only one involved. A lot of other realities are, such as code waivers that I've mentioned earlier, or Igalia, are engaged to create a more efficient Linux ecosystem, not only when it comes to gaming, but all around improvements. However, it's not all sunshine and roses, as it may sound. In fact, even if many people are working in supporting all of these APIs, developers are still designing their games to run on Windows machines, and even worse, there are still anti-cheat software that aren't supported on Linux or even Mac. So why, you may ask? Well, a lot of anti-cheat software out there is made for Windows, and even though Proton might be able to run games associated with the anti-cheat software, it could either fail to run the cheat control or trigger the flag for cheating if it was able to launch the game at all. Developers of a few anti-cheat programs have been releasing their Linux native versions or allowing Linux running programs through the anti-cheat to make more gamers able to play their games on Linux due to the high visibility of the Steam Deck. Even considering that Proton could never run anti-cheat like the EAC, Easy Anti-Cheat, well enough. And why is that? Well, you might know that there's two levels of privilege on your PC. Kernel, which is literally full control, and user land. All resources access must go through the kernel layer. EAC runs within the kernel space itself, which is crazy when you think about it. Bad guys have a hard time getting cheats into the kernel because Windows only allows loading verified programs into the kernel. This works because it is fully controlled by Microsoft. On the other hand, on Linux devices, the kernel is completely open, so everyone can change it and possibly load cheats on their own PC. In short, on Windows, the highest privileges are owned by Microsoft. On Linux, they are owned by the user. That means that Proton cannot guarantee the same privileges as Windows, making cheating a lot easier, they say. It's a cat and mouse game really, and on Linux cheaters have the upper end. Most anti-cheats companies don't like that, so unless they find a way through it, we won't be able to use them. I really hope that these two realities will soon cooperate to give players a better experience. So, we went through all the contributions that Valve is giving to the open source community and Linux gaming. The Steam Deck is, I think, the most sold Linux device. I want you to realize that there are very few companies that care that much about free and open source software, so it's important to us to support those companies in any possible way. When announcing Proton, Valve stated, "Our goal for this work is to let Linux Steam users enjoy easy access to a larger back catalog. We think it will also allow future developers to easily leverage their work from other platforms to target Linux. This would give them the option of focusing on areas that would make a meaningful experience difference for all users instead. I want to encourage you to embrace this statement and, I don't know, just donate to the channel, I guess. Thanks everybody for following, and see ya."